All right, welcome to episode 20 of the Small Talk podcast. Today, we're here with Rachel Kokosenski, who is one of our newer agents on the team. She recently moved here and is now living on the lakeshore. Rachel, thanks for coming in today. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up on our team.
Thanks. I recently moved here from California. I was living in Southern California and have had an interest in investing in real estate for a few years now. And I have family here in the area, and I had invested in some long-term properties as well as a short-term, and just really fell in love with real estate and got excited about working with other investors and other buyers and sellers.
Definitely. Okay, and how did you get connected with our team?
Well, I used to work for a Keller Williams agent out in Southern California, and when I mentioned to her that I was interested in being an agent, she said, "Great, where do you want to go?"
There we go.
She connected me with you. So
that's
here
awesome.
We are.
I think that's one of the great things about real estate is we know that we are connected to agents all over the country, all over the world, right? Whether that's somebody buying a house or selling a house or getting into real estate in different areas. So it's great to have a national network,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So what's your favorite part? So I know you're into short-term rentals and investment properties, but now that you've been doing it 3 months, is that still kind of one of your favorite things to talk about, or has it changed?
Definitely. I'm definitely still very involved in investing, and now there's a new term that's starting to come out, which is called medium-term rentals, which is sort of a hybrid between long-term and short-term.
All right.
And that's an area that interests me as well, particularly because our area is really well suited to it. A lot of visiting nurses are interested in having a rental for maybe 3 months, 4 months.
3 months, that's medium term?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is an area that we could really explore here in Western Michigan, I think, and find some real opportunities for investors.
It's finding those people, right, moving to the area, and how do we connect with them first?
Right.
Totally get it. And what's your thoughts on like the Muskegon real estate market? So I know we're in Grand Rapids, you're in Muskegon, and things are a little bit different, but how's it going out there?
So Muskegon is interesting to me. It has been for over 5 years now because it's still a very accessible market. You can get started as an investor for very little money, probably $30,000 to $40,000, and you can be making a long-term rental profit on that quite easily. And the thing that's fun in Muskegon is that because the price point's lower, you can pick up a few properties, whereas you might only get one here in Grand Rapids. So for those of us who get bit by the investor bug, it's a lot of fun to be able to collect properties.
So what could you do with $30,000, $40,000 in California?
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
If you're lucky, that might be a down payment on something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's we've seen that a lot here in Grand Rapids too, out-of-state investors looking at this area. So I think it's probably even more of a normal thing in Muskegon because we have people going from Grand Rapids to Muskegon looking at properties. So
Sure.
What other markets are you working in?
I'm also working in Grand Haven, which is where I used to have a short-term rental, and my family lives over there, so I go over to Grand Haven regularly.
Yeah.
And Grand Haven's another really interesting little gem. I used to describe it in California as the Newport Beach of Western Michigan.
Interesting.
Which, for those in Southern California, they immediately knew what I meant because it's sort of the place to go in the summer for a lot of local Michigan residents, as well as people from Illinois and Indiana. And it's also becoming a real hotspot for retirees, I think, too.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Like, what's the draw to Grand Haven?
Well, it has that sort of cute postcard feel to the downtown, and there's a lot of activities going on. There's always the Coast Guard Festival every summer, as well as just a lot of outdoor activities between the beach and hiking and biking and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm.
All right. So do you own investment properties yourself?
Currently, I do not.
Okay.
I'm living in what was once a rental of mine. I've moved into and taken it over as a personal residence. But believe me, as soon as I can, I plan to go back in and start buying more properties.
Okay. Sounds like you timed the market pretty well with your sales.
Well, you can never really time the market per se, but generally if you can get, a good property that people want, that you can hold and then resell, you're going to be in good shape.
So you've owned vacation rentals before. How does that process work as becoming a vacation rental host or owner? Like, what does that look like?
Sure. So the vacation rental that I had over in Grand Haven was in a building called the Piano Factory. And it was a place that I actually stayed before as a tourist and really liked. And when I saw one of their units come open, I jumped on it immediately. I used to come out and stay there with my family and visit with my other family that lives out here. And again, it's an easy market because we have so many locals that like to come out. I would even have people sometimes from Grand Rapids come spend the week in Grand Haven.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a popular destination, but it's got another little caveat with it, and that is there really aren't any hotels in Grand Haven. It's primarily short-term rentals.
Oh,
so
I didn't realize that until you said that.
Yeah. So that makes it a really great market to do short-term rentals in.
Not too many other options for somebody.
Right, right.
So any piece of advice you would give somebody that's thinking about getting into short-term rentals?
Sure. So one of the things you want to think about is making sure that it's an accessible apartment or condo or home for people. And I mean accessible in the sense that you want to make it so that it's not only for young couples or only for families or only for older people, but have it so that you can have a wide variety of guests so you're not limiting yourself. And the other thing I always tell people to do is stay at your own short-term rental for at least a long weekend. Because believe me, when you realize, oh, there's no whisk, or oh, there's no ice cream scoop, or no pizza pan or something, then you can make a list and make sure that you're stocked up on everything. So
it's funny you say that. So one of the times I've stayed in a short-term rental, I discovered a pancake griddle. So using a griddle, an electric griddle to make your pancakes versus a pan on the stove is a game changer. So, and I learned that from staying at a short-term rental. So it's cool. And I'm sure you learn a lot, just by staying at your own and experiencing it as a guest. So
absolutely.
What are the pros and cons versus like a traditional rental?
Well, some of the pros are that because you're having people there for shorter times, you're having eyes on your place more frequently. Things that might maybe get broken or need maintenance, you'll pay attention to more carefully because your guest might actually mention it, or your cleaning staff might mention it to you, and things get taken care of more quickly. The other thing is people tend to be a little bit more careful with someone else's home when they're staying at it, as opposed to sometimes a hotel. They might not be as concerned. Or, if you're in a long-term rental, you might just sort of get set in your ways about how you treat the place. So maybe not cleaning it as frequently or something like that, or forgetting to tell the landlord something. So having more turnover can actually be to your benefit. One of the cons, though, is that it requires more effort on your part. I was managing a rental here in Michigan from California, which was interesting because there's a 3-hour time difference. So they would be worried about calling me late at night, which would be early out there, but then the reverse would be true in the morning sometimes too. So I worked that out pretty well most of the time, but feeling like you're a long ways away when, for example, the fridge goes out is tricky. But you just have to have really good people who are working for you to help you sort of handle those challenges.
Trust your contractors.
Right.
So getting into the short-term rentals, are you allowed to do that anywhere? Or is there specific cities that have rules, or how do you find that out?
So that's a very good point. There's becoming more and more regulations about short-term rentals, and so anybody that's looking into that is going to want to check with the city that they're looking to do the short-term rental in. For example, in Grand Haven, they have now designated certain zones of the city that you can do short-term rentals.
Heard about that.
And sometimes you have to inherit a occupancy certificate or a short-term rental certificate from the previous owner.
Okay.
Muskegon is not as heavily regulated except for North Muskegon, where they don't allow short terms. But Muskegon is still pretty open about it, but they also don't have the number and volume that Grand Haven does yet.
Okay.
So
how do they compare, like Muskegon and Grand Haven?
So in terms of short-term rentals?
Yeah, as far as like short-term rentals in different areas.
Sure. Well, obviously in Muskegon, there's a couple of areas that you would want to look for short-term rental, either by the water, because people want to be able to walk to the lake or be right by a lake or by a dock, perhaps, that they might bring their boat, or they want to be downtown, because now Muskegon is sort of experiencing a renaissance with all the new breweries and restaurants and things, and so people want to be where the action is a lot of times. Now, Grand Haven can be a little bit of both. It can be, the nightlife of walking around downtown or enjoying the musical fountain or bringing your boat. And it just depends on the people that you want to attract. You're going to get generally a little higher price point in the Grand Haven area, but Muskegon, you can still do really well for a nighttime rental rate.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that you should kind of think about who your guest would be when you purchase a vacation property, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So where do you live?
I live in Muskegon. So
okay. Like near the water?
Yeah, actually I live pretty much walking distance to the water, which is nice. In a nice quiet neighborhood that has a big park nearby. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you like to do around there? I know you like to ride your bike, and
yes.
Is there any good trails in Muskegon?
Most definitely. One of my favorite trails is to go down by Muskegon Lake, and I discovered one day out there walking, as I came around the corner, I suddenly saw over 100 swans out on the water. Yeah, it was incredible. They just were everywhere you looked. There was just swans, and it was really neat. And I've seen them there regularly now when I go down there. So, and it's a nice path that has boardwalk in some areas and dirt trail in others and paved in other places. So you can go a long way on bike trails and walking trails here in Western Michigan, which is a lot of fun. So.
Now, I've been to a few like summer concerts out there. What else is going on in Muskegon?
For sure. Well, we also have a farmer's market that goes year round, which is near the downtown. And we have a lot of events happening at Heritage Landing, which is the waterfront area.
That's definitely where I've been.
I went to the Irish Music Festival down there as well, which was a lot of fun with all kinds of Irish music and food and just a lot of activities going on. Muskegon's, like I said, is becoming well known as being a destination. And we also have museums, and we have the Frauenthal Center and some other things too.
Yeah, and the arena just being rebuilt is beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what about Grand Haven? What are some of the events that happen in Grand Haven?
Well, they're probably best known for the Coast Guard Festival, because that's where the Coast Guard was actually founded, was in Grand Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew there was a Coast Guard base. I didn't realize they were founded in Grand Haven.
Yes,
that's awesome.
They were, and that's why they have the festival it's usually around the end of July, beginning of August.
Okay.
And literally hundreds of thousands of people come to that from all over the place. It's incredible.
I've been there. Yeah. I've watched the parade. One of the funniest things, the clown band, the Scottville clown band is a lot of fun. So.
Well, and I enjoyed going with my nephew, who's 9, to see the dog jumping competition this year, where they jumped into water, which was a lot of fun too. Yeah. So, but you can tour the ships down there. They have different music festivals down in Grand Haven. They also have the Singing Fountain, which is one of the first, I guess, before the Bellagio in Las Vegas. Grand Haven was the first singing fountain, and it only operates seasonally, basically Memorial Day to Labor Day, but it's across the river, and if certain parts of downtown, you can actually watch a light display and hear different songs, and it's kind of a fun thing to go do in the summertime.
I remember that as a kid. We would go watch the fountains. It's a lot of fun, and crazy how much water. Yeah, and they do fireworks over there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what else is to do in the Lakeshore area? What are some other things that you like to do?
Well, our beaches are gorgeous, and many people don't even realize that they're there. I mean, we have Lake Michigan, but we also have North Muskegon area, There's some restaurants down there that are on the beach that's fun to go to and have live music.
And the deck, yeah, we've been there for that.
That's a lot of fun. But yeah, there's a lot of things to do outside. There's a lot of canoeing and kayaking, and of course, if you have a boat, you can do that, or fishing.
Yeah. Speaking of boats, they have the ferry there, right? Have you ever taken that across?
I have not, but that's on my to-do list for next year, I think.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'd want to come back. I think I'd want to do it once.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how that would work.
Sure.
But what do you see for like the future of Muskegon? Like, do you see it like growing to the size of like Grand Rapids, or what do you see happening out there?
I don't know if I see it growing to the size of Grand Rapids, but I think it's going to become more of a destination. I had heard someone told me a story that when one of the cruise ships that comes through Muskegon had stopped one time accidentally because they had some sort of a malfunction, and people got off the boat and went into town, and they loved it. And so apparently the cruise ship changed and added Muskegon as a stop.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of a fun thing. But I think with the new restaurants and the breweries, and, now they're also building, loft spaces for people to live in downtown. And they're really putting an effort into planning that out and trying to become a regional draw for people.
I could see that. And yeah, I've heard about that Great Lakes cruise. My mom talked about taking it. So where do you take visitors when you have people come visit you from out of town? Where do you take them?
Well, I always like to take them down to the beach. They're pretty surprised to see that we actually have sand. And of course, when you look across Lake Michigan, it's like looking across the ocean because it's so big.
Yeah.
That it kind of, but you don't have sharks, you don't have salt water. I like to take people on walks down by the water, like I said, to go see the swans, or I like to go down and have something to eat, or maybe go check out the deck restaurant.
Yeah.
Listen to some music. Yeah, lots of great things to do.
So you've lived in Muskegon now for 2 months. Where have you lived before that?
So most recently I came from Southern California.
Okay.
And I had lived in Southern California about 22 years. So that I'm sort of trying to get used to winter here now.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I actually lived up in Montana. I went to college in Montana and stayed, lived there 10 years.
Okay.
So
pretty similar weather in Montana to Michigan, or is Montana?
Much colder in Montana.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you think so many people are moving from California? I've had a lot of clients and people that I've talked to move from California.
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think people are wanting to have a little more space. California is pretty concentrated with population. And, of course, our price points are a whole lot better. You can get a lot of house out here for a very small amount compared to California. And I think people are returning to being more family-oriented, and they want to just be in a place that really supports that, and I think that Michigan does.
Yeah, some of the things we take for granted, right?
Right.
So, what jobs have you done in the past? So I know you said you worked for a real estate agent out in California, but before that, where have you had experience?
Well, I've had a wide variety of experience, everything from being a child protective social worker to being a career counselor at a major university in California. I even did a short stint as administrative director at the Riverside Art Museum in Riverside, California.
Wow.
Yep. I have some real interest in art as well as just helping people. I've always gravitated towards jobs that were about helping people.
Okay.
So
you mentioned you went to school in Montana. What colleges in Montana?
So my bachelor's I did at University of Montana in Missoula.
Okay.
Home of the Grizz. And
is that like Grizzly Bears, or what's that?
Yeah, well, our team mascot are the Grizz. So we have, just like you have the big rivalry between UM and MSU here, we do too. But we have University of Montana Grizzlies versus the MSU, Montana State University Bobcats, which is over in Bozeman. But I actually have a master's from Montana State University, but in Billings. So
that's actually, like, I hear these names actually on Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah.
Bozeman and Billings, and that's
Yeah. I've never lived in Bozeman, but I lived in Billings for quite a few years, and that's actually the largest city in Montana.
When have you been back?
I was out there this summer, actually, on my way here from California.
How has that changed in the last 20 years? Because you were there 20 years ago, right?
I honestly, when I was in Billings, I got lost quite a bit. It looked so different to me. My best friend lives there, and I kept saying to her, I don't know where I'm going anymore. It doesn't look the same.
Yeah, that's one of the things they're fighting in Yellowstone.
Yes.
Is the development and
right.
The airports and stuff like that. So
Yep.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So have you read any like good books or like what else have you been up to?
So because I have a real strong interest in investing, I read a lot of investment books, and I also listen to a lot of podcasts about investing and real estate. One of the things that got me involved in investing and really sort of did my deep dive into learning about investing in real estate was something called Bigger Pockets.
I've heard of that.
Yep, they're a huge. They were small when I started, following them, but they've become this huge source of information for investors. I recommend all my investors to check them out. I listen to their podcasts regularly, and I, read a lot on their forums as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So is there like one book that you would say has really helped you kind of understand the investment rentals or investment in real estate better that maybe somebody should read?
Sure. So there's one that's put out by one of the Bigger Pockets guys named Brandon Turner, and it's called the BRRRR Method. And I'm going to, of course, mess up this. It's BRRR, which is buy, refinance, renovate, and resell, I believe. Or rent and resell.
It's one of those, that ours might not be in the right order.
But it's all about how to take a property and make the most out of it, essentially. Whether you're going to do it for the long term or you're going to turn it into a short term.
And pull some of your cash back out
right.
and use it to buy your next one.
Exactly. Because like I said, once you get bit by the investment bug, then you tend to just keep wanting to do more and more. So
totally get that. That's I've been bitten. So so what other things maybe that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have?
Well, like you'd mentioned, I like to bike. That's a big thing. When I first moved to California, I was in a bicycling club and rode all the time. I would ride when I was in Montana. We had a very short season of riding, which kind of getting used to here as well again. But I was riding at least 100 miles a week when I was up there in Montana because I didn't have the luxury of the winter rides. But I like riding a lot. I've been involved in doing some fundraising things for multiple sclerosis, and so that's been fun too.
So biking, is it on the road or is this off-road biking that you like to do?
Definitely on the road. I don't like mountain biking.
Okay.
Too scary about all those hills and things.
Yeah, so. there's a couple really like crazy trails, I guess, that are in the Grand Rapids area that Merrill Shoe Company is big sponsors for.
Oh,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah, something above my level. Yeah, I'm more of like ride the bike around the block with the kids. That's.
I have ridden in Yellowstone Park a couple of times.
All right.
And that was exciting, especially coming up on a herd of buffalo and trying to hide behind RVs and not get gored in the process. So,
yeah.
But we managed, so. But I have a good story to tell now. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, is there anything that you would share that you've learned now that maybe would have helped you kind of along the way?
I probably would have told myself to buy a lot of real estate over the years. I
wish
I'd started earlier for sure.
Like, do you remember like what homes are going for when you were 18?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't even on my radar. I was looking at rentals. So, yeah.
I think it's a lot of people's maybe downfall is they don't explore all of their options. They just assume that renting is the best thing for them to do, right?
Right.
Like, and I think if people really looked at the total picture, you could find that you could buy something for little or no money out of pocket. Mm-hmm. And you don't know that without, having conversations.
Right. Or the new thing to do is house hacking, where you live in one part of the building and you rent out the other half.
I did something similar. That was my first time buying a property, and I lived in one bedroom, and I rented out the other 3 bedrooms to friends. And
there you go.
I made money every month and, paid down on my house. So
Absolutely. So I look forward to helping investors of all ages and backgrounds to do things like that and to find ways to, build up their own wealth for sure.
Yeah. So do you just like working with investors, or do you first-time home buyers or sellers? Like, what other clients do you help?
No, I definitely am open to working with a lot of different people. It's very fun to take somebody through a house and watch them light up and say, this is the one.
Mm-hmm.
I love this house. I want this house. How do we get this house? And helping them to realize that is really exciting.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
also being willing to sit down with somebody and explain the process. I try to remember what it was like when I first bought my own house years ago and how scary it was. When you have to sign the paperwork and you're buying this immense thing. It's totally different than buying a car or something. So
yeah,
I try to remember the gravity of that for a first-time buyer.
I recently purchased a vacation home that I'll be using as a short-term rental, and things have changed even in the last 10 years. I mean, I bought several homes over the last 10 years, and you kind of almost get numb to it,
Right.
but then you go through it again and you feel like what it's like to go through that process, and have probably even more empathy now for the buyers that I'm working with to, help them kind of through the process and have a better understanding of what they're experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yes, and I mean, selling is just as important as buying. So definitely work with sellers and help them figure out the best price for their home so that we can get it sold quickly and for a good price for them. That's important as well, for sure.
so how can our viewers get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach out to me through our website, smalleganrealestate.com, or they can give me a call at 231-261-2007. And I'd love to talk with them about what they're looking for.
Awesome, Rachel. Well, I appreciate you coming in, and I hope our viewers got a chance to get to know you a little bit more and see how passionate you are about helping people and just how much you know. But thanks again for coming in today and sharing a little bit of your story with us.
Absolutely. This was fun.
All right. Thanks, Rachel.
Sure.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Small Talk Podcast with the Smallegan Real Estate team. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our earlier episodes.